Welcome to Lesson 6 of Dark Hole Elementary, Hardleg Gaming's beginner guide on how to play the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading Card game. I'm Hardleg Joe, and in this lesson I'll be talking about how to battle. To begin with, a little reminder about battle positions, which I covered in Lesson 4. Monsters placed vertically are in attack position. A monster must be in attack position in order to declare an attack, though they don't have to attack if you don't want them to. Monsters placed horizontally, whether face up or face down, are in defense position and may not attack. With that in mind, let's move on to the battle phase. The battle phase has 4 distinct parts called steps. Just like with phases, the steps go in a particular order, and certain actions can only be taken during each step. The first step is called the start step. This step begins as soon as the turn player declares they have entered their battle phase. This step serves as a sort of standby period, where the battle phase has begun, but no battling has yet to take place. This step exists so that both players can take note of any effects that begin at the battle phase. In addition, the start step is often used to activate traps and quick effects, since the turn player has limited means to respond at this point. For example, if you flip your opponent's monster face down during the start step, they cannot flip them back face up until the end of the battle phase, since doing so would be changing battle position, which can only be done manually in the main phases. Once all the effects have been accounted for, the turn player can move into the battle step if they want to attack. In this step, the turn player selects one attack position monster they control and one target to attack. If the defending player has any monsters on their side of the field, the attacker must choose one of them to attack. If the defending player has no monsters, then the attacker may declare a direct attack against their opponent. Cards which use the text "when an attack is declared" or "when your opponent's monster declares an attack" can be activated at this point. Sometimes, a card effect will special summon or destroy monsters during the battle step, after the attacking player has already selected their target. If a monster enters or leaves the field at this point, it creates a replay, which means the attacker can reconsider their attack. For example, let's say you're the turn player. Your opponent has no monsters, so you declare a direct attack. In response, your opponent activates a trap which special summons a monster to their side of the field. In this case, you aren't forced to continue the attack. You can choose to attack their new monster if you'd like, but you also have the option to cancel your attack, or attack with a different monster if you have one. If you choose the last option, however, it means you aren't allowed to attack with your first monster for the rest of this turn. Once an attack is successfully made, the turn player then moves into the damage step. The damage step is where the results of battle are determined, and any damage to life points is calculated. The results of any battle are determined by comparing the attack of the attacking monster with some aspect of the attack target. Doing this is called damage calculation. In the case of a direct attack, the monster's attack points are simply dealt as damage to the opponent, so a monster with 1,000 attack reduces the opponent's life points by 1,000. If the target is a monster in attack position, then you compare the attack points of the two monsters. Whichever monster has lower attack points is destroyed, and the player who controlled that monster takes damage equal to the difference. So for example, if you have a monster with 1,000 attack, and you attack your opponent's monster which has 700 attack, then your opponent's monster is destroyed, and they take 300 life point damage. If both monsters have equal attack, then neither player takes any damage, but both monsters are destroyed. If the attack target is a monster in defense position, then you compare the attack points of the attacker with the defense points of the target. If the attack is higher, then the defense position monster is destroyed, but its owner takes no damage. If the attack is lower, then neither monster is destroyed, but the attacker will take damage equal to the difference. So for example, if your 1,000 attack point monster attacks your opponent's monster that has 1,800 defense points, then you will take 800 damage, but both monsters will remain on the field. If the attack is exactly equal to the defense, then neither player takes any damage and neither monster is destroyed. If the attack monster is face down, then attacking it flips it face up. At this point, its card text becomes public knowledge, and any continuous effects it may have go into play. From there, damage calculation proceeds just as it would with any other defense position monster. Once damage calculation is complete, but before the monster is sent to the graveyard, any flip effects it has will come into play. This is an important anomaly to note, because if a flip effect monster is destroyed by battle, its effect activates on the field before it goes to the graveyard, but after it has already been destroyed by battle. So, if a flip effect tells you to target a monster on the field, that monster cannot target itself, even though it's still on the field, because it's already been destroyed. Another important note with the damage step is it is the only part of the duel in which the activation of traps and quick effects is limited. During the damage step, players may only activate counter traps and effects which directly change the attack and defense points of monsters. In addition, it's important to note that activating these types of cards does not cause a replay, meaning you can use these types of effects strategically in the damage step. For example, say you have a monster with 700 attack, and you are being attacked by a monster with 1000 attack. You have a quick play spell card set, which allows you to increase the attack points of your monster by 700. If you wait for your opponent to attack your monster, and then activate your spell during the damage step, your opponent won't be able to stop their attack. They must go through with their attack, even though doing so will now destroy their monster and inflict 400 damage to them. Once damage calculation is completed, the destroyed monsters have been sent to the graveyard, and all effects have been accounted for, then the damage step is over. At this point, one of two things can happen. If the attacking player has more monsters, then they can go back into the battle step by selecting another of their monsters and another attack target. This of course will lead back into the damage step, as more damage calculation will need to be done. The turn player can repeat this cycle, once for each monster they control, until all of their monsters have attacked, or until they've decided to stop attacking. Once they've finished or run out of monsters, the turn player moves into the final step, the end step. Much like the start step, the end step merely serves as a point to activate effects. Cards which contain the text, "at the end of the battle phase," or "after this card attacked or was attacked," activate specifically at this point. Once the end step is complete, the battle phase ends, and play finally moves on to the less complicated main phase 2. Well, that's it for this lesson of Dark Hole Elementary. Only one lesson remains in this series, but it's the most complex lesson of them all. Click over to Lesson 7 on Chains and Spell Speed to finish up the series and get started playing Yu-Gi-Oh!